Welcome to the It's Been Said podcast. I'm your host, SAI Executive Director Lisa Ramey. Today's episode is a special edition of the It's Been Said podcast. Dave Daughton, Government Relations Director, will discuss his perspective on current legislative topics relevant to district and school administrators. He'll offer his insights on this subject matter periodically over the coming months. Let's hear from Dave.
Hi, everyone. This is the School Administrators of Iowa Legislative Update for Week 10. This is Dave Daughton, Government Relations Director for SAI. There was a little bit of a flurry this week to meet the second funnel date, and some bills that we have been tracking, both good and bad, did not make it through. We will continue to watch for conversations about some bills that we do not support and try to find ways to get some needed legislation into the mix. First, let's talk about property taxes. The House held a subcommittee meeting on House Study Bill 596 on Wednesday and amended their original bill. Their amendment, which has not been printed yet, included the following. It extends the SAVE state penny out to 2071, which is a good thing. It ramps up the move of SAVE dollars to property tax relief, just like the governor's, only not quite as fast as the governor's proposal. That's not necessarily a good thing. And it puts a cap on unspent authorized budget at 35% of the prior year expenditures. And we're not really sure what that might do, good or bad. We do believe the amendment that they brought out removes the supermajority election requirement for revenue bonds as well, and that is also a good thing. It mostly holds schools harmless for the other aspects of the bill. At this point, we assume they're still working together behind the scenes to come to an agreement of some kind, but we shall see. I would urge you to contact your legislators and educate them on how you use the SAVE funds. Mention how much you receive per student and how you use those dollars for infrastructure, including buses and computers. Talk to them about how you have projected expenditures and infrastructure plans into the future using the SAVE dollars. Without the SAVE funds, those costs will fall back to the general fund, or you would have to pass a bond issue for facilities and or increase your PEPL levy, which goes back to property taxes. Help them to understand the negative impact of taking SAVE dollars away from schools. A few bills moved out of committee this week, and there are others that are tax or appropriation related, as well as a couple that are attached, which means they're the same in both chambers, that we'll be able to work on next week because they were funnel proof. I do want to draw your attention again to the two student behavior bills, Senate File 2428 and House File 2538. These bills have been passed by the originating chamber, in other words, out of the House or the Senate, and then passed on to the opposite education committee, so both are still alive. There will be ongoing conversations between the bill chairs, Senator Gruenhagen and Representative Wheeler, next week, we think. We've been pretty involved in conversations with both of them and hope to continue that. And below, here are a couple of talking points that you may want to move forward. Overall, we prefer the language of the House bill over the Senate bill. Our primary concern is the role of the Oversight Review Committee. The Senate version has this committee making decisions on an individual basis regarding when a student can return to a classroom after being removed. We believe this mandate is unworkable and would create division within our school staff, as well as putting administrators, you, in a difficult position. However, we don't agree with everything in the House version. One part that we do not agree with requires teachers and staff to read the IEPs of each student they have. This would be inefficient, ineffective, and time-consuming. We've suggested that all teachers and pertinent staff be informed of the contents of the IEPs, perhaps in a presentation by the AEA or district special education staff. This would be much more effective than reading a 10-page document and reading numerous documents for numerous students, especially at the middle and high school levels. There are other points within those bills, including the ability of a teacher to say no to a decision to return a student to a classroom. That's in the Senate version, as well as some required professional development for staff regarding least restrictive environment and IEP regulations. We believe that those presentations would help staff understand why some decisions are made at the administrative level. Please review the two bills and share your thoughts with legislators in a positive way. Also, be prepared next week or in the future to email certain legislators as we see which direction the bills may be heading. Several bills came out of the Senate Education Committee this week. House File 2591 on open enrollment ineligibility. It changes the ineligibility period to 140 calendar days. House File 2363 has to do with English learners and open enrollment. House File 2538 is the student behavior bill we've already talked about. House File 2546 is the student information system, and this bill creates a bridge from each district's student information system to the DE. The DE will work on developing that bridge or will work with vendors. It does allow districts to keep the system that they have. House File 2652 mandates play-based learning in a certain number of minutes for preschool and kindergarten. And House File 2670 has to do with some testing. It mandates a social studies assessment, and that would not be implemented until 2027. A couple of bills will return to the Senate, which means they were amended in the House. Senate File 2218 is the citizenship e-verify verification for new hires. And House File 2686 has to do with coaching authorizations, and it creates a new pathway to get a coaching authorization. A few bills came out of the House Education Committee. Senate File 273 defines what grooming is and requires you to report it to the BOEE if it happens. Senate File 2219 originally was the 4-H FFA bill having to do with absences, and it was amended, and it requires that all school activities be considered exempt. Senate File 2220 is the TAG Accelerated Learning Bill. They did talk about how there would be amendments on the floor before they would pass that. Senate File 2231 has to do with preschool with community partners. It has several parts, but the most important one to us has to do with the requirement that school districts develop 2080 agreements and partner with community providers. There is a disagreement in that bill about how much oversight the district would have over those community partners. Senate File 2335 requires the Department of Ed to do a study on the impact of technology on students, and we've already talked about Senate File 2428, which is the Senate Behavior Bill. I will mention, too, that a bill passed Senate File 2086, and that came out of the Workforce Committee, and it allows schools to create a junior firefighting program for juniors and seniors. It's optional for the school. It creates sort of a pathway to be able to get kids who want to be firefighters in the future to get some experience prior to that. One final bill note. House Study Bill 683 was a bill that included a significant increase in physical education minutes, as well as requiring all high school students to participate in a co-curricular or extracurricular activity in order to graduate. That bill died in the House Education Committee, and rightly so. However, that bill itself was inserted into an HHS bill, House File 2676. It's Division 9 of House File 2676, and it passed out of the House before we knew it was there. We believe that the language in the bill would result in many elementary schools having to hire an additional PE teacher because the bill requires that all elementary students would have 30 minutes of PE per day. Right now, the language reads as 30 minutes of physical activity, so it includes recess. This bill would require 30 minutes of PE per day at the elementary level. There would be an impact on middle school and high school physical education as well, and would potentially require additional staff and expenditures as all students would be required to participate in a co or extracurricular activity. In addition, facility availability would be a challenge for all PE classes, whether they're elementary or high school level, and maybe more importantly, the time that this mandate would take away from prior elementary mandates, such as reading minutes, math improvement plans, reading improvement plans, and several other curricular mandates. You can see the impact this portion of the bill would have on districts. There are other portions of House File 2676 that need to be discussed as well, but this one is the most important. I would urge you to contact your senator and share these talking points over the weekend. Contact your senator because they need to amend this bill so that it does not just move forward and go to the governor to be signed. It needs to be amended in several ways, but the most important item would be the removal of Division 9 from the bill, House File 2676. So from this point forward, things will slow down significantly at the Capitol, but there's still a lot of work to do in trying to make sure we get some of the bills through and making sure that we eliminate or modify troublesome bills. A positive I want to share from this week was seeing 2 school districts share about the therapeutic classrooms in their districts. Both of those districts have a consortium of school districts that provide a learning environment for students that meet their unique needs. They presented to a House Appropriation Committee and did a great job of educating the legislators. A shout out to Winterset Schools and Eddyville, Blakesburg, Fremont. They did a great job. Before you sign off of this podcast, make a note to review the 3 action items that I've talked about. Save for schools, having a workable and effective student behavior legislation, and amending House File 2676 to at least remove the physical education mandate. Do what you can to advocate for those 3 items and educate legislators. Thanks in advance for doing that. Have a great weekend.